Hello, hello. It is PrepOnline Day today, and this is Charmaine Hammond, and I'm here with my co-host, Joanna Severino. I'm going to do introductions in just a moment, but while people are coming on, we wanted to say hello and welcome you to today's topic. And just if you've never been on one of our webinars before, there is a chat box that Joanna and I will be watching for questions, and there is also a Q&A box. So please put your questions in there. Joanna and I will look at those. Sometimes we can't get to every question, and we will certainly find out the answers for you and send those to you in the follow-up email. Let's dive in. Are you ready to rock and roll here, Joanna?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about today's topic. This is a hot topic right now, and we have a number of perspectives that will be joining us today to talk about what do private school admission committees look for? A question that's on the top of mind for many parents and many students. And we have several perspectives today that will help you understand the answers to that question and a lot more. So our host today, I'll tell you who I am, then I'm going to introduce Joanna Severino, who is the CEO and founder of Prepskills. My name's Charmaine Hammond. I'm a professional speaker, facilitator, and consultant. And I've had the opportunity to work with school divisions across Canada for many, many years, providing training programs to school staff, doing training on professional development days, and most recently actually working with some communities after natural disasters and helping the schools, the families, and the community rebuild their resilience. So the topics that we talk about on this webinar series are so important, in fact, more important now than ever. And that was part of why Joanna and Prepskills brought this webinar series to the forefront so that we could help connect families to experts, to influencers, and to the answers that they're needing right now during these times that we're all navigating through. Now, Joanne Severino, our co-host and the CEO and founder of Prepskills, Inc., has been in the education world for 25 years and has worked in a variety of capacities and is passionate, very, very passionate, in fact, about helping students find their future. Joanna, do you want to share a little bit about Prepskills before we dive in and introduce our guests?
Sure. I've been an educator for over 25 years and a mother of 3 lovely boys, ages 14, 11, and 8. So busy household at this time. And primarily what Prepskills does is support students through their transition years, primarily those who are entering middle school to high school, and then high school to university. So we're really here to support them and help them find their passion and connect their personalities to their bigger future.
Thank you, Joanna. And then look at this lineup of guests. This is an incredible lineup. So put your seatbelts on, everybody, because we're going to dive into introductions and into the topics today. So I'm going to start who you see on our screen to the left. We have Eileen, and she is an immigrant parent from Africa with a big, big passion for quality education for children, as well as continuous learning for adults. And Eileen has working experience in a variety of capacities, including banking, hospitality, manufacture, education industries. She's lived this experience of navigating various levels in education systems in Africa, as well as North America, in the US and in Canada. And she has worked with school administrators committees in both the elementary and the high school levels of education. So welcome, Eileen. And next we have Laura, and Laura is the admission associate for Day and North American Boarding at Pickering College in Newmarket, which is in Ontario, if you're not from Ontario and listening. Her favorite part of the day is sharing Pickering College's engaging programs and supportive community with the students as well as their families. And after earning a BA at Bishop's University, she worked in advertising in Toronto before moving to Scotland to go to university. And she has spent the past 20 years in the independent school sector, which has given her a lot of experience as a middle school teacher, communications manager, and admissions professional. and she has a dog. And so I'm a big dog lover too. We were talking that we might have dogs join our webinar. Who knows? And beside Laura, we have Michael, who is a psychologist and a certified teacher with over 25 years working with students and families in both the private and the public school sectors. And Dr. Leatch has worked with Crescent School in Toronto now for about 15 years as a teacher, as an administrator, and was also the founding director of Student Services. Prior to that, he worked for the Toronto District School Board as a special education teacher. And since 2013, Dr. Leatch has been in private practice consulting with organizations as well as with students and families. And he's a member of the College of Psychologists and the Ontario College of Teachers. And then we have Jaden Lo, and Jaden's father, Perry, is joining us as well. So Jaden currently is attending the University of Toronto Schools, grade 11. He has worked with Prepskills and his application to UTS in grade 6. And he says that fitting in is no easy feat. I just love this quote that you shared with us, Jaden. Fitting in is no easy feat. As an avid participant in many extracurricular activities and volunteer work, Jaden would be thrilled to answer any of our questions on this webinar from the student perspective. So thank you, Perry, and thank you, Jaden, for being here today. All right, I say we dive in now and start getting to these questions. What say you, Joanna?
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start off with some big picture. Education is really about relationships, and I'm a big fan of the private school independent system, in that I believe that they really do a great job in what I consider a certification process. So it really is a holistic admissions process, and I'm interested in hearing from each of you your perspective with regards to what you think the admissions committees are looking for. Why don't we start with the admissions expert, Laura?
Thank you very much. You know, I think sometimes the process of approaching an independent or a private school can be intimidating for families. So I think really, certainly from my perspective, the first thing that I want to do is to build that relationship and to put families at ease, and to recognize that we all have the same goal. We're all looking for these students to be really successful, and it's really working collaboratively through the process to make sure that, well, in my case, that Pickering College, or our environment, is the ideal environment for their children. So it's really working together, and you know, and for families as well, it's not just finding the best school for their child, it's also finding the best school for the parents, and the school that has values that resonate with them, because we're all raising these kids together. And so it really does need to be a place that that everyone connects with, not just for the student.
Absolutely. Mike?
Yeah, I think it's a two-way conversation. Absolutely. The parents and student are searching for a school that best fits their child's needs and interests, and not all independent schools are the same. Some fit differently for kids with different interests and different aspirations. So you really have to kind of look at that when you're looking at the school. And then the school is also really interviewing you as well, with the parent and the child, to see how that collaborative relationship can be built, because it's not a place where you just drop off your kid and kind of leave. The school wants to really work with the parents and in a community kind of sense. So it's really a two-way conversation to seeing if both are a good fit for each other.
So true. Eileen, what are your thoughts?
I will echo what Laura and Mike have said. During my experience, the best fit for the child and the family was forefront. We did apply to very many schools, and that was a consistent theme across all the schools that we interacted with. The other thing that was very important for us was to tour the schools, because in touring the schools, we got to speak to the children, we got to understand the culture and how the community works in the specific schools. And also we got to interact with the teachers who were present during the session and ask them questions. And the website too, that was a great tool to review it before the tour, and so that you're somewhat informed before you go in, and from there you're just building your knowledge going through.
Nice. Perry, share your perspective.
Sorry, I was muted. I echo what everybody else has said, but I think the key word is the connection and the fit. Without that, you're not going to enjoy your private school experience. And really, at the end of the day, the interview is a two-way street, like Michael said. You need to feel comfortable that your child is there 8 hours a day. You need to feel comfortable that the school is working collaborative with you, and that the school also is looking for parents who will support their mission statement and to make our children successful.
Nice. And Jaden, let's hear from you. Student thoughts.
Thank you, Joanna. And I guess I wanted to talk a bit about what more specifically private school admissions officers would look for in a given student. And really, after speaking with our admissions officer at UTS, something that really popped out to me was in this day and age, they are looking for a student that is well balanced. So I'm sure you guys have heard this many times, but a student not only academically inclined, but with lots of extracurriculars, involved in their community, a demonstration of passion. And I really think that being able to portray this to the private school admissions board is really just a benefit for the student.
Interesting. And so you all touched upon the interview, and that's a really important piece when applying to the independent schools, and really the focus of our session today. And so I wanted to touch upon that. And as you know, the interview is really a short window opportunity to really dive into the personality of a student, and of course the families diving into the personality of the admissions people as well as the school. And given COVID-19 and what do we anticipate happening this fall? Essentially, there may be a situation where interviews will need to be virtual interviews. How do y'all feel about that? Pros and cons, and do you think we're going to be able to accomplish the same positive end with virtual interviews? Anything happening on your end, Laura?
Well, actually, Pickering College has a very large international community, particularly in our boarding program. So we've been conducting online interviews for a very long time. And historically that was through Skype, but we found that Zoom now is a platform that everybody's, believe it or not, more and more people are comfortable with and familiar with. So we've moved from Skype to hosting Zoom interviews. Certainly for the older students, when we're talking boarding age, grade 7 and up, they feel okay and they feel comfortable in this setting. Sometimes it's when we're wanting to connect with the parents and the little ones that it can be a little more challenging for our day families, and they're not as used to that. But because of the very rapid sort of exposure that these younger ones have had to this platform over the past couple of months, we're seeing more and more of a comfort level with them engaging with you in this platform. So I think overall, everyone, because this isn't the only experience that they're having through that conversation, I think that everyone's getting to a much higher comfort level very quickly. So I think in a lot of ways it's helpful for families. For example, even some of our day families, they're not in our community just yet. Some of them are 12 hours away, some of them are 8 hours away. So being able to offer the online interview lets them go through that process, when historically that would have been something that they would have had to wait till they were actually in our community to do. So it does have its benefits.
And Michael, what have you heard?
I've heard the same thing. The younger ones are really adapting to the platform. What I would suggest with anything is it's a great opportunity to practice. And if mom and dad are practicing, those interview skills and that kind of thing, the online world is really an interesting one that I think once we're past COVID, we're going to see a lot more expansion of this as well, as companies figure, that they don't really need to have people there at an office 5 days a week. And so I think people are going to become much more comfortable with the platform, and the interview process will reflect that as well. So, yeah.
Let's talk about mom and dad and the interview process, and probably in looking at the interview process when we're thinking about the parent involvement and interviewing the family and the parents, what sort of tip-offs might there be in the discussion with the parents in terms of maybe a difficult parent that you may need to be dealing with through the process? Have you ever experienced something like that? And then on the flip side, I want to hear from the parents as to what they're looking for in the school, and what their tipping point may have been when they were making their assessment. So Laura,
Sure.
What are you looking for in a parent, and any tip-offs for perhaps a difficult parent situation?
Well, I think the first thing that we all have to acknowledge is that as much as we can talk about it's a practical process and we're all working through things methodically, it's emotional as well. These are our kids, and nothing matters more to families than their kids. So that going in. I think what sometimes maybe sets off a bell for me is if I have a parent and all they want to do is complain about experiences that they've had, whether they're complaining about the current school or a teacher. So when I hear a lot of kind of looking to blame others and wanting to share that with me, it makes me a little uneasy, because we all know that everyone's trying their best, and maybe it wasn't the right fit, as we've talked about. So that's just kind of something that for me makes me think, okay, well, I can't promise you that we're going to be perfect either. So I want, it's that relationship, isn't it? And working collaboratively. So I want to make sure that if there's issues that we're welcoming families that want to work together on those things.
Right.
So really in terms of talking to a parent, probably my best advice and what I look for is honesty, because our kids aren't perfect, and we all have strengths, and let's talk about those. But if there's areas where they need some support, let's be honest about that too, because if we're not aware of those areas, then we can't give them our best either. So I would say really being honest about who your child is and what they need to succeed.
Great. Michael?
Yeah, I reached out to a number of admissions colleagues prior to this, and one of the questions that they sort of all kind of referred to was inquiring, asking the parent how they would like to contribute to the life of the school. What kind of things might they be able to offer as far as getting involved in participation and that kind of thing. So that's a really collaborative question that's not child directed, but it's really family directed. And you can get a good sense of whether the parent is really just trying to drop the child off and have responsibility, passed on to the school, or if they really want to work together with the school, because that's what makes the private schools so good are the connections between not just the kids and the teachers, but the families and the teachers and the administration, and that kind of thing. And that moves into your alumni network later on, and so many things down the road. So I think what kind of skill sets they might be bringing to the table as well as their child. And are they wanting to do that? Is that something that they're looking forward to? And hopefully they're excited about that as well.
Eileen, how did you put your best foot forward for the parent interview?
I took it like a job interview. So I was Googling all the questions because there are no questions that are specific for independent school application. So we went through all the questions we could find on Google and just get to that place of I'm comfortable having the conversations and I have the answers right at the tip of my fingers. But at the end of the day, the tour was very key for us as we were preparing for the interviews. Now, when we were doing the elementary school applications, we did not know of Prepskills. But when we did the high school application, we got the preparation from Prepskills, and that was such a relief for us. We did get, specific interview questions that could be asked, and we got the practice. And, Sydney was able to develop the confidence and it came out somewhat like a charismatic quality in him that was somewhere hidden under there and that it was able to come out. So Prepskills really, really helped us and taking the school tours in just getting comfortable and preparing for the interviews.
Thank you for that, Eileen. Sydney is a joy to work with for sure. Perry, what about you?
I agree with what Eileen has said. It is a job interview. The school is interviewing the parent as well as the child. But I think beyond that, as a parent, you shouldn't be afraid to ask the questions that really matter to you, because this is your opportunity to really understand if that connection is there, if that fit is there. And if you don't ask it during the interview, and you're just trying to be politically correct or just trying to make sure that you put your best foot forward, you might not get that question answered. So for some parents, the athletic part of the school, the athletic part of their child's education is most important. For others, it could be extracurricular. You need to ask those questions and understand what the school can do for your child as well at that time. I agree with the tour. Of course, with COVID, you can't do that. I'm sure there are virtual tours that you can do, but that sense of walking around the school and having a feel for what the student population is, I think is very important. And lastly, I think before you go into an interview, you and your child really have to sit down and really have a good chat about why you're considering a private school and why you're considering this private school versus another. Because that way you can really flesh out what really works well for your family. Because there's a plethora of schools out there, and there's one school that will fit better than another, and you need to know that before you go into the interview process.
True. And Jaden, what stood out for you? What helped you make that decision about finding the right school fit?
Actually, on the topic of what my dad just said, sitting down with your child, I do remember after the open house, after everything had finished, I was sitting in the car with my dad and my mom, just in the parking lot of the school. And then they asked me, they were like, so Jaden, what do you like about this school? And then I was like, I think it's interesting. I think that it's academically very vigorous. I think that there are lots of opportunities for me. Now, I think what really sold the deal for me at UTS was just all the extracurriculars. And for me, it was the exposure to all the clubs, all the different organizations within the school, the environment as well, and especially the community, because at our school, we have a house system. And to me, that just seemed fascinating. It was a lot like Harry Potter. And at the time, I had a obsession with J.K. Rowling's works. And so, yeah, it's just another thing that you should consider as a student is really just your gut feeling. Like, what do you feel about the school? Do you think you can see yourself at this private school or public school in the next given 6 years of your life? And really just also meeting people at the open houses or perhaps now virtually, seeing who your classmates would be, who these potential friends you would be meeting for the next 6 years of your life.
Wonderful. So insightful. Charmaine.
Oh, this is a rich conversation. So all of you have talked about some of the very important qualities of interviews and how to prepare, and have given us some great tips to help families, from Googling questions to practicing to having those conversations as a family to really thinking about what's important to you and what your goals are. And Michael, I know that a lot of parents and students are probably nervous about this. And Eileen, you summed it up so well when you said, you know, this preparation helped you build that confidence to be able to go into that interview and feel grounded and confident. And Michael, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are very nervous about this interview. Some of us might not have been to any kind of an interview for years and years. So there's apprehension, discomfort. If it's a school that you're really feeling connected to, there's pressure to, you know, sort of make this your best effort. Can you provide us some tips to help students and parents deal with some of the nervousness that might be going on for them, and to really show up feeling confident and feeling also themselves? Because I heard you all talk about the importance of, you know, being who you are and bringing your best version of you to the interview. So we'd love to hear that from you, Michael.
Yeah, I think practicing really boosts confidence, and whether that's with your family or through Prepskills or through you know, another person who's maybe been to a private school or is at one, that can really help to develop your confidence when you're in that interview. If you also know somebody who's at the school, that can really ease some of your apprehensions and your tensions as well. So if you're, you know, in the Toronto area and you're lucky enough to know somebody who also attends that school, I would tap them on the shoulder, and parents, and get a sense of you know, what the school is like. Because at the end of the day, the tension and anxiety is often overblown, and once they go through the process and they meet the people and they realize that they're just, you know, everyday human people like you and I, who are nice and want to do a great job, you know, that tension and anxiety goes away. So not avoiding it, that will build it, but doing everything that you can to become more familiar with the culture that you want to potentially become part of, will go a long way to boosting confidence and reducing that pressure, I think.
Wonderful, thank you. And that's such a great life skill, because as we move forward in our lives, as students, as adults, there's going to be lots of times where we will have to practice being confident, being prepared, managing our own emotions and nervousness about whatever is going on right now. So I'm really curious about this from all of your perspectives. When we think about interview questions, and you were starting to talk about that a few minutes ago, does anyone recall any sort of out of the box questions that sort of made you say, what is that about? Or just something really intriguing where it really caught your interest? You know, we were thinking about questions like, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be and why? Or, you know, if you were going to travel somewhere in the world, where would that be? Were there any examples of outside the box type questions that a student, a parent should be prepared for? Who wants to take that one?
I had one admission colleague just a couple of days ago, and he gave the suggestion, what 3 words would you use to describe yourself? And what 3 words would your good friend use to describe you? And those were kind of, and what he was getting at when I was phoning him and we were discussing this was student self-awareness. And that can be, you know, as young as kids are, being self-aware. So that, you know, some of those, you know, not completely out of the box questions, but more a question about who you are, values, but at an age appropriate level. And so that was a suggestion that I just heard. So
awesome. Jaden, you were going to add to that. Thanks, Michael.
No, I remember very clearly right after my interview process at UTS, I actually had a conversation with Joanna, because one of the questions, quite similar to what Dr. Michael actually said. But my question to me was, which 3 characteristics would you like to work on? And they gave out a sheet during my interview with different characteristics that I wanted to like apply to myself, things that I could improve on. And the reason I talked to Joanna about this was because this had been one of the exact questions that was featured on our Prepskills workshop. And really, I think it was like when I read the question, I was like, this looks familiar, because I believe probably a month prior to my actual interview, I attended a Prepskills interview workshop, and to me it was such a great way to prepare myself for the UTS interview, and these questions that seemingly appeared out of nowhere, I felt a lot more comfortable in answering.
That's a great story, and that's an interesting question to be asked. You've really sort of got to know yourself well, and then be able to communicate that to other people. And that skill of self-awareness is just so important in, life beyond the application, life beyond the interview. Perry or Eileen, did you want to add anything from the parent perspective? Was there any question that stood out, or you should be prepared for this type of a question?
I can go first. We've been through a number of private school interviews, TFS, UCC, and UTS. Now, I can tell you, UTS, they actually don't interview the parents at all. It's really just the children. But with TFS and UCC, it was really a conversation, because they don't come out and pepper you with questions. They just have a conversation with you. What are your goals for your children, and what are you looking for the school to provide? And I think Michael was saying, what can you do for the school as well in a certain way, and in a very nice conversational tone. There wasn't really any of those gotcha questions because we're the parents, I guess. So that's been my experience. It's really a conversation that they have with the parents, just to look for the fit. And I think somebody was saying earlier that you have to be yourself, because you can't hide who you are, and be honest with what you're portraying, because that's really going to go far in whether or not you stay at that school. And like Laura said, you don't want to be complaining about the school. Right. So it's on, the onus is on you to make sure that fit is there.
Yes. Great.
Well, for me, it was a question that caught me off guard rather than gotcha question. They asked me to talk about Sydney and just tell them about him. And that's a very emotional question. When you're talking about your child, there's lots of emotions that come in, the discoveries and how the child has grown and blossomed, and the things that you're seeing happening in their life. So I always used to find that question a little bit somewhat uncomfortable, because it brought in an emotional perspective, and trying to balance that while you're in an interview, I found it a little bit tricky.
Wow. I love that you brought up, Eileen, just sort of the emotive part of it, that, and there's that, when you talk about your children, when you talk about your loved ones, sometimes we might not even be prepared for what emotion comes out when we're actually talking about the people that we love, and we're thinking about their future. So thank you for raising that. Anyone, Laura, did you have any comments on this as well?
Yeah, similar to what Perry said, I think a lot of the questions that certainly we use to guide the conversation, so that we're not just kind of in this blank space, but it really is opening up to that conversation. And Eileen, you're right, it can be very emotional, because these are our kids, and we want the best for them, and we want what's best for them. And it's funny when I think back over different interviews, and sometimes you get, it's always in the responses to what can seemingly be a kind of a predictable question. Like, I'll never forget, I had this little girl, she was maybe, I guess she was about 8 or 9. And one of the questions was, and as you say, Michael, it's wording it in an age appropriate way. And one of the questions was, is there something that that you've done, something about you that you're really proud of? And she said, well, I can almost do the splits. And she was just like, she was bursting. She was bursting. And you could just see like what that little, you know, kind of just being able to accomplish the splits, what that meant to her. And it just says so much about somebody when you see them kind of fill up with that pride. So there's been little, you know, just those little moments that stand out, and you really do, you know, and I say this to parents and to students as well. We, you know, certainly in our role, we realize that you are really opening yourself up to us, and that you're sharing something that is so important to you, and hopefully, you know, and I speak for all my colleagues, that we're creating a space where you feel comfortable to share that with us, because we do realize just how important that conversation is.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like a lot of the questions too are really getting to a person's character, to their values, to their family values, to their goals, their dreams, their aspirations. Joanna, I'll pass it over to you now. This is a great conversation.
Well, I do remember from one of our personal interviews at a particular private school, there was a sense, my husband and I were in the room, and there was a sense that you know, a bit of problem solving had to happen on the spot. So to Jaden's point, you know, 3 characteristics, or describe your child using 3 words. Number 1, does the parent, do both parents, are they on the same page with respect to the 3 words that they select for their child, right? And then the ability to rank those words, right, from number 1 to 3, and getting on the same page with your partner in terms of describing your child. That was interesting for me. So that was an interesting point.
It's like the newlywed game.
Exactly. And for a minute, I thought we were going to be put in separate rooms, you know, the cue cards were going to come up, and it was like, did you get the right word? Have you experienced anything like that, Laura?
Yes, you know, sometimes I think, and I don't know what it's like. Like I know for me in my marriage, cup is always half full, and my husband is a little bit cup is half empty. So we kind of come at, you know, we yin and yang, we balance each other out. But I think there's a lot of couples out there who, you know, one parent might talk about all these amazing qualities, and then the other parent will kind of come like, yeah, but also, and kind of balance it out. But you know, that's where the richness is actually in the conversation, because we're all just humans, and there's different, you know, we have different sides to us. So I really think that's where the conversation, that's the dynamic of the conversation that I think is really valuable when parents share. You know, you can talk about the same quality, but come at it from different perspectives. You know, a student might be extremely determined, and that can be a really positive quality, but then sometimes that determination as a parent can be challenging, because they're determined to do something, and it might not be what the parent wants them to be determined to do. So it's recognizing that these qualities have different ways of looking at them.
True. Michael, what have you experienced with?
Very similar, and I like those conversations because they're less scripted. They're much more honest, and you do get a sense of you know, the family dynamic, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfect kids and perfect families and scripted answers and those kinds of things. So talking about challenges is great, and you know, even better is how did you overcome them, and you know, a difference of opinion is completely okay, and you know, as you say, it's a guided conversation. It's not sort of question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and those are things that come out during those conversations. And I enjoy working with families where there is that sort of dichotomy between both, and working through that. And often I see that sometimes in university preparation. where one parent wants, thinks a certain area should be pursued, and the child thinks another area, and maybe the one parent agrees with the child, but those are rich conversations, and that can happen during the admission process as well. And I think it just gives the admissions panel more insight into, what the family and what the child can bring to the school from a passion point of view, which I think everybody is looking for.
Great. Eileen, what were you looking for in a school for Sydney, or did you leave that decision up to Sydney? He was entering grade 9.
We were looking for the best fit based on our experience when we were doing the elementary school applications. It really came to light that the best fit for the child is very, very important, so that it's the child who's going to school and not me going to school. And we did the school tours, and I kind of took the back seat and let him drive. So he would ask the questions, and then we would sit down and make a list of what we liked, what maybe needs some improvement. And then based on that, we compared and then decided on what school we were going to pick.
Good. And Perry, what about you? How did you?
Jaden was at TFS since we moved to Toronto when he was young. But around grade 5, we felt that we should take a look to see what other schools were available. So we looked at UCC and UTS, and as much as I love to say that I let him drive, I think the parents really tried to steer him in, a certain direction as well. But at the same time, we did have that honest conversation with Jaden. At the end of the day, we let him make that choice because we felt that it was important that he felt whether or not he had a fit at, UCC or UTS. We have a daughter that's in grade 8 now, and we decided to let her stay at TFS because the fit there was better. We didn't even try for another school because she really had a great bunch of friends, and every child is different and every family is different. I think at the end of the day, as much as I love the private schools we've been to, I'm sure there's a ton that we've never even seen that are just as good. So as parents, I really encourage you to get out there and take a look at all the schools that are available and make the best choice for your child.
Great. Jaden, walk us through the process. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you choose, your experience currently at UTS, and congratulations. I understand you'll be UTS captain next year, so good for you.
Thank you, Joanna. It's been one long journey, and really just starting at the very beginning, through the process of going through the interview, the SSAT, it's just a lot of practice, and really someone who my father really helped me, and my mother, of course, helped me along this path, and it's a lot of perseverance that's needed. But once that work is over, then you bear the fruits of your work. And so from the moment that I've been attending UTS, it's been well beyond my expectations. And I think that's just the journey that every single student will go through. And whether it's meeting new people, whether it's struggling or flourishing in class, it's just one big experience to prepare you for the next. And throughout this entirety of my time at UTS, I think one thing that really gives you your own uniqueness is the amount of passion that you portray, whether it's in class, whether it's at school, to your friends. And this passion is something that was mentioned before, and having that glow, just being so incredibly invested in your area of not expertise, but what you enjoy doing. And so just talking a bit about UTS, it has different programs for different students. It's very heavily influenced by STEM subjects, as well as the music department and athletics. And really, it all depends on the student, which path you want to pursue. And UTS does a fantastic job in providing all these experiences for different students and enabling students to have these different resources at hand. And especially now, with COVID-19, what we see is a change in learning environment. And with everything being digital now, UTS was incredibly quick in adapting to this. And already we've been able to form a committee to discuss about future plans, because right now everything's up for grabs. We don't know the dates for next year. The classes might be different. And yeah, so as a school captain, there are lots of meetings that I would have to attend, and lots of planning to do. And I think that overall, it's just, I'm still in this experience. It's at the very beginning of this journey, and I look forward to everything that will come.
Great. And so your role as captain is what, if you had to sum it up?
I would say we, as a captain, we are in charge of bridging the gap between students and staff, and being a spokesperson for the school, ambassadors. And that was really one of my highlights of my UTS career, of course. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
That's great. Congratulations. And so today's session, all about interviews. We haven't had an opportunity to go through all aspects, but there are different interview types. We've seen traditional type of interviews, of course, the online, the virtual, what are called MMI, multi-mini interviews. And so we're happy to explore those with any families who may have questions. Charmaine.
All right. Well, see, I told you this would just speed by. We're getting close. I'm giving the guests a little heads up here. We're getting close to the time where we're going to have you wrap it up with that one word or one sentence tips for students or families. Laura, I wanted to ask you, what goes, so with the decision-making process, so when interviews are done, everything has been done, and you're now in the process of decision-making, what goes into that?
Sure. Of course, it's not an easy decision, and there's a number of factors. I would say that, of course, there's the academic piece, and that's kind of the easy piece, because we're looking at marks, and certainly as a university preparatory school, we know that we're looking for students that are going to be successful with that academic path. So that's kind of the easy piece. The more challenging piece are, like we've been talking about, the character pieces, and seeing potential in children and in young people as well, recognizing that at a school like ours and a school like UTS and a school like so many, there's so much to offer students. And so we want to make sure that we're welcoming students to our community that want to be part of something bigger, want to be part of more than just go to school, do my homework, go home. Because there are so many opportunities. Like Jaden was saying, we have over 65 co-curricular programs. So there's opportunities for students. You don't have to be any one kind of student. You can pursue athletics, you can pursue the arts, but want more for yourself. So it's that combination of wanting to contribute and what we're able to contribute to that experience. And just realizing that, the students are going to be spending significant time with us, and wanting to make sure that that's a place that they'll thrive.
I imagine very difficult being on the admissions committee when you get to the point of decisions, and it sounds like there's a lot to weigh out. It's not just about academics and marks, and then what you're saying, Laura, is where it gets challenging, is when you're considering all that this family brings to the table, all that this student brings to the table, to be part of a bigger community, a longer term community with a school. And you've all touched on that in some way today. Boy, this has been a rich conversation. Wow. So before we go to the tips, I'm just going to put up the slides so we can show people what's coming up for the next few weeks with our seminar, and then we're going to come back to our guests to help us pull this together today. So we have some more sessions coming up in June 10th is Great Parenting Simplified. We've got a couple of great guests. And then on June 17th, we're going to be talking about virtual volunteering. And in a time where you might not be able to get practical experience or internship or volunteer, what could that look like? And then June 24th, we'll be talking all about the U.S. college admission process. So for families, for students that are looking to attend college in the United States. And then July 8th, talking about standardized tests, applications, EQ skills, and more. And of course, the website on the bottom is where you can register. And we're really excited. Prepskills has announced their virtual Prep Connect event, which is happening September 19th. And of course, registration is free. The website is here. I'll put this in the chat box where you can find more out about the event. And it's a one. Joanna, did you want to, before I go and brag about the event, did you want to add anything about the event, the Prep Connect event virtual?
Just again, it's an opportunity to really connect with the schools, with students, parent ambassadors, and discover, the journey of the private school admissions process. So we welcome families to attend that.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then if anyone is needing assistance, Joanna, you heard today on today's call, Prepskills is able to help support families in preparing for interviews and to understand the interview process. I'll put the call link. This is a direct call link where you can actually book a call with Joanna. I'll put that in the chat box in just a moment, but we're always willing to support students. And as you know, Joanna's passion is really helping students and find their future. So if you need that phone call, you can call Joanna. And we are at that time, which means I'm always sad when the webinar comes to an end, because this conversation has been so incredibly rich and valuable to everyone listening now or later on the recording. We would love to hear from each of you one tip, so like one sentence or one word, although Joanna, you always try and squeak like two in there. When I say one word, you always say, I'm gonna share two. So we'll give you that opportunity, one or two words or a sentence tip that can help families, students, pulling this all together today as they go off and find their future and explore the private school process. Who would like to, maybe I'll put you on the spot first, Joanna. What's your tip for people listening today?
Well, I think initially it really is about preparation and resourcefulness. That'll open the doors. However, as many of our panel speakers said earlier, it's really important that once you're in the door and you're having that conversation, specifically at the interview, that you are honest, that you are transparent, and that it really just becomes an authentic conversation. So there you go. More than one word.
That's okay. All right, who's going to take it away next? Who would like to go next?
I'm happy to go. I would agree with all of that about authenticity, but I would also say self-confidence. You have a lot to offer, and we recognize that. So really believe in yourself and realize that we see your potential as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I would say 5 words. Convey your passions and interests.
Wonderful. Convey your passions and interests. Thank you.
I'll go next. I'll say ask questions. Ask questions of the panel. Ask Joanna if you have any questions about the process, but ask questions.
Excellent. Ask questions. Lots of them. Thanks, Perry. Eileen.
I would say involve the child from the beginning of the process to the end, because that way you get to know the big question answered, what is the best fit and just sit back and observe the child's behavior in the different schools as you visit them and as you look at the websites.
Awesome. All right.
Jaden.
Yeah, I guess I'll close with these two words. And this is really from a perspective of a student. And the two words are have fun. And when I say have fun, it's like you want to make the best out of this opportunity. And no matter what happens, it's a learning experience. And you want to have as much fun as you can. Keep smiling. This will help you everywhere, I'm sure. And yeah, have fun.
Wonderful.
Great. Wow. What a great note to end on. Keep smiling, have fun. We all need to. Did I miss anyone with the tips? My screen changed. So did I miss anyone? No?
No.
So keep smiling, have fun. What an important message now more than ever, where we need to find the joy in things and be connected to our passion. And what I've loved about today's conversation is everything that you all have shared with us not only support students and families in their private school application process, it helps them in life. You've really captured some very, very rich strategies and tips and words of wisdom for us to carry forward in all areas of life now and in the future. So thank you very, very much to our guests for being here, for being so vulnerable, sharing your perspectives, your thoughts, your concerns around, all the things that happen to us when we're going through this interview process. Joanna, did you want to say any final words as we pull this together?
Thank you to everyone. I think everything that we heard today is really going to provide that foundational stability that I think we all need, especially during COVID, to forge ahead and help students find their future. So thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Yes, and to all of you that were with us live today, thanks for joining us. And if you're listening to this recording, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen in. Have a fantastic day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.